Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started on the webinar for internship programs at work and how to provide a red carpet experience. Before we get to the material, just a couple of logistical items. If you have questions throughout the session, I encourage you to go ahead and type those in to the text box. We have some scheduled breaks throughout the slideshow where we can address any questions that you have, or we can also discuss questions at the end. I'm going to go ahead and start with some introductions. My name is Chelsea Ducate, and I'm with Red Envelope Consulting, an HR firm. We provide HR solutions for a variety of different functional areas, so anything from recruiting to compliance, training and development, talent management, etc. And we also partner with the Indian InternNet and Indy Chamber on expanding the creation and use of experiential learning opportunities for strategy and retaining Indiana's talent. And I want to leave you with this fact that a third of entry-level jobs are actually filled with previous interns. So if you hired as an organization 6 people from 6 recent grads, then 2 of them were probably from previous internships that your company had. So it is a great way for you to attract talent and also retain talent. So before we go through the agenda, I want to start with describing for you what an internship is and what it isn't. So an internship is an on-site work experience that is related to an individual's career goals. It is not a summer job. It is not a position where someone is doing administrative duties 100% of the time or routine repetitive tasks. It is a supervised learning and professional development opportunity. So we're also going to go through today some benefits of internship programs, best practices that are in the market, some effective work assignments, common pitfalls that organizations fall into, and how to integrate students into your work culture. And then also discuss some other items for preparation for their arrival and departure. So what are some benefits of internship programs? There are several benefits. I'm going to go through 5 quick opportunities for your business to benefit from interns. And one of them is an increase in productivity. So, a lot of us, we're running from meeting to meeting, we're answering emails, phone calls, and there's always those looming projects that we don't have an opportunity to work on. I know for me personally, I had an intern help me with my website redesign, and it's something that I knew was important, but I didn't make time for it. And so having somebody to help me with those operational duties was very helpful, and also gave them visibility to employment branding. Also, in the summer and especially in the spring, there's lots of vacations, and it's good to have interns on site to help with some of those transitions and coverage while you've got people out for long periods of time. Energy and new ideas to the business. Interns, whether they're high school or college or even graduate students, bring a lot of innovative solutions to your organization, things that you wouldn't have thought about, or different ways of doing business that maybe you hadn't thought about. It also allows for companies to identify potential future hires. If you think about it, it can be a 90-plus day interview. So you not only get to meet with them for an hour and discuss what they're capable of, you actually get to see it in action. The fourth benefit that we've got listed here is it creates an opportunity. So it gives you an opportunity to provide back to the community and give a student a real world work experience. And building your brand. So having an intern really helps with building not only your employment brand, but also your corporate brand. So whenever you host a student on site, you're creating an experience for that person. And that student's going to go back to school and they're going to tell their professors and they're going to give examples in class that are based on their experiences through their internships. So it allows for a lot of branding opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't get. Okay, so you've established a need for an intern. Now what? Okay, I'm going to actually circle back and show some of the slides again. I understand that there may have been some issues with visibility. So I want to go through quickly the benefits of internship programs. Hopefully you're able to see that here. But an increase in productivity, energy, and new innovations, an opportunity to identify potential talent. You create an opportunity and then also helps you build your brand. Okay. All right. So you've established a need for an intern. So now what? What do we do? Well, first and foremost, you need to make sure you're achieving your leadership buy-in. If leadership's not on board with it, it simply becomes a summer job for somebody. It's not a program. There's not a lot of strategy to it. It's just somebody kind of plugging a hole. And while that's important, it's also important to have a long-term strategic view of how this can help with your talent management in the organization. You need to make sure that you define what the internship is and what you want it to be. There are different types of internships that can be provided. There's obviously the traditional 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, but there's also project-based and virtual internships. Project-based can be good depending on what the scope is that you have for the assignment. And sometimes that's better suited for a stipend type of relationship and instead of paying by the hour. A virtual internship, I've had personal experience with this. I've had 2 interns in a virtual type of environment, and it works really well with the right person. You need to have somebody in that role that is driven and can work in a variety of different areas and stay focused. So those are some different types of internships that you can offer. Next, you need to establish your timeline. Do you want an intern in the fall, the spring, the summer? Do you want them year-round? What does that look like? Really, as a kind of a general rule of thumb, you should start to recruit interns 4 to 6 months in advance. And that's not to say that, maybe during this presentation, you're thinking, oh, we need an intern and I need to work through these steps quickly. We can still probably find a solution for you and find good candidates. It's just to get the full scope of what's out there from a talent perspective, starting 4 to 6 months is pretty ideal. After that, you need to identify compensation. What are you able to do as an organization? And I know there's small, large companies, there's nonprofit, for-profit organizations. What can you do to offer a student? Can you offer them an hourly wage? Do you want to pay them based on their the functional area that they're in? And typically, what I advise is start with your HR contact and see if they have something set up for that already. If you have a standard compensation model already in place, they probably have something for an intern already identified. However, if you find yourself without the right tools, NACE, which is the National Association of Colleges Employers, and I'll provide that information here at the end, but they have some really good compensation data out there that will provide you with a good idea of what to pay your student. So after you figure out what you want to compensate your intern, you really need to focus on drafting an appropriate job description. So what are you looking for? What requirements do you absolutely have to have? And what are the requirements that are preferred? List out the hours and the expectations. Think about it when you're out there looking at resumes. Think about your expectation and flip it around, because the student has an expectation. And so they are looking for certain information. certain pieces of information. They want to know, okay, is this 8 to 5? What are the expectations? Can I work from home? What does this look like? If you need some sample job descriptions, Indiana InternNet provides a range of resources for employers, and I would encourage you to check that out. They've got sample job descriptions there for you. If you need some individual help, I'd be happy to help as well. Okay, we're going to move into some of the best practices that are out there. So when you think about compensation, you know, a lot of times students and even professionals, we think about, okay, what's the base pay? That's compensation. When really compensation and benefits is a lot larger than that. So, you know, if you're a smaller organization and you're not able to pay an hourly wage, can you provide a stipend? Can you provide them with some housing assistance? Maybe you know have some resources in the market that you're able to tap into and get them discounted housing. You know, can you help relocate them from whatever university they're at? So there's other ways of compensating your students besides just paying them an hourly wage. But I'd also encourage you to look into the EARN program, which is through Indiana InternNet, and that allows for organizations that fit the criteria. It gives them an opportunity to get 50% of the compensation reimbursed through that program. So I encourage you to look at the EARN through Indiana InternNet as well. If you need a provider for housing assistance, I've worked with National Corporate Housing several years now, and I can't say enough good things about them. Their team is very helpful. They will actually identify housing based on your budget, and it comes fully furnished if you want it to, and they set it up really nicely for the students. Flexible work arrangements. If you have internships during the school year, obviously there's going to have to be some flexibility with their schedule, their class schedule. But even in the summer, you know, a lot of students are taking classes in the evening or maybe one class during the week. You know, can you work around that? So you might want to identify some of those things, the areas of flexibility that you have. You know, I really like this next one, and inviting the Career Center staff on site. That just provides really nice touch for the university. It gives them access to you as an employer, and it also allows them, you know, resources to be able to help when students come into their office and say, I need an internship. Well, that's funny because I just went to this company and I had a really great experience. You should check it out. You know, it's free. It just takes a little bit of time. You can give them a brief tour, introduce yourself as the intern program manager or the hiring manager or whatever. And then showcase their work. So this can show up in a variety of different ways. I've seen interns do presentations at the end of their internships where they walk through, you know, what their performance was, what value they added to the organization. It also gives you an ability to see them in a different arrangement. You get to see them in front of the room, how they present, what their presence is like. And then some companies also do poster sessions, and that works for larger programs where maybe you've got so many interns and you haven't had a chance to meet them all. Give them a couple of hours, have them set up a poster in a high traffic area, and let people go through and the leadership team go through and see what they've been doing and some of the accomplishments that they've made. Okay, I'm going to take a couple of minutes and go back through the chat and see what questions we have, if we have any at this point. And then we'll come back on here in just a few minutes, or just a couple of minutes. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to go ahead and address a couple of questions that I received. The first one is, do I have the percentages of companies that have internship programs? I don't have that off the top of my head at the moment. I'd be happy to look into it. Um, but I do know that it's increasing every year on a regular basis because of programs like this, because of the Indy Chamber and Indiana InternNet, and our focus on growing it. The next question: the housing provider is actually National Corporate Housing. They are the vendor that I've used for several years and would highly recommend. Next question on buzzwords for job descriptions. Love this question. Culture is a big one. So talk about your culture. What is it like to work there? Give them as accurate preview as possible. Social events. They want to know, okay, how am I going to meet new people? What are the chances of me getting hired out of this? What experiences will I have? What are the expectations? Where will I be working? Am I going to be behind a desk? Am I going to be on the shop floor? That type of information is really good to have in the job descriptions. As I think of other buzzwords or things, I can respond during the next break. We're going to continue on into the 4 principles of effective work. So these are the things that you really need to make sure you've got included in your work assignments for the students. Number 1 is, does this position offer business impact? Is this person making a difference for the organization? You need to have that in there, and even if it's small, some sort of impact to the business. You need to have a measurable objective. So when they leave, they can say, I did this, I contributed to this, I saved the company this much money or time, or I increased efficiencies by this much. And some of that comes back to the student, but also providing those opportunities starts with the organization. So you want to make sure you're providing them with real work. Job-related learning. You want to make sure that the majority of the task that they're working on is what they are majoring in. So for an example, I had an intern a couple of summers ago, and one of her main assignments was to figure out what applicant tracking system we wanted to utilize as an organization. So she researched every company that was out there, every product. She did demos for every product, talked to the sales associates, and she made a recommendation based on our budget, based on the slickest tool that did the things that we needed it to do. So that was something that had direct business impact that she owned from the very beginning. And it also helped her learn more about recruiting and the recruiting function and how important it is that we have the tools in place. And then, ensuring that there's a distinct conclusion, that they're able to wrap up the package with a nice bow at the end. And even positions that maybe you have on a continuous basis. Maybe you have one project and you just cycle interns through working on that project. Make sure that there's something different for each student, that they're able to end something, so that they feel like they added value and they have something to talk about that they did during their internship. Okay, so some common pitfalls. And I have had issues with these myself. So the first one, throwing interns into the work right away. Definitely always a struggle for me, and I think most of us have probably in our work history been thrown into the work right away. So that's how we tend to manage. And there's going to be things where they're thrown into it, but if you can try to prepare them as much as possible and provide them with the appropriate training based on whatever it is that you're giving them to do, that always goes over very well. I mean, you've got to think about it. These students are, this could potentially be their first work experience ever, or their first corporate work experience, or career-related internship or work experience. Skimping on compensation. We kind of chatted about that already. The next one here, putting interns in charge of social media. I see a lot of companies out there, that maybe they do social media poorly or not as effectively as they would like. So they're like, oh, that would be a perfect project for my intern, which in some situations it probably is. But you've got to think about students coming into the organization. They are new to the company. They don't really know the culture yet. Maybe they don't know how to communicate the culture. So if you're going to have an intern that's working on social media, I would just encourage you to pair them up with somebody that's been around the company for a little bit longer in the communications area, because it is your face to the outside world, to make sure that they're doing that effectively. Letting the intern fly solo. I think a little bit of this is good. But initially when they first start, you just want to make sure that they have resources that people can go to. And whether they go to them or not is their own decision. But giving them a mentor, and giving them a buddy to work with. And I like that scenario where you give them a mentor for some of the performance coaching, the skills coaching, but you also give them a buddy or somebody, a peer, that they can ask, okay, where do I park? Where can I grab lunch? What are some of the best meeting spaces to arrange a meeting? The last point here is selecting mentors without much thought. As you are selecting the mentors to pair up with the students, think about what that individual's, what that person's strengths are, and if it makes sense to put them in that role. I highly recommend putting individuals that are on that leadership track into that position. It gives them an opportunity to manage for the first time, so it indirectly creates a development opportunity for your staff. And it also provides the student with somebody that's engaged and wants to do it right from the very beginning. Okay, integrating your student into your work culture. So there's a few different things here. The first thing is, whether you have one intern or 100 interns, you want to make sure that the intern feels like they're part of something that is structured, that has a formal timeline for when things will take place. So it's about communications, having a timeline, making sure that they feel like they're a part of a journey, and not just a singled out person. Provide social events for them to be a part of. Indiana InternNet has lots of events throughout the summer and throughout the year that I'd encourage you to check out on their website, that you can also partner with if you don't want to have your own individual events. However, if there is a victory field night for the staff, make sure you invite the interns. I've seen that happen where all full-time employees are included, but not the contract employees or the interns, and that just creates seclusion, and it doesn't make anybody feel good about themselves. Community outreach. Companies that I've been a part of, we would have a day of community outreach for the interns where they got together and they planned that day. They picked where they wanted to spend their time, and they picked out the logistics of the day. They planned out, okay, what's going to be for lunch? Where do we meet? What are we going to do? What kind of impact are we going to have? If you have a smaller program, you have 1 to 2 interns, maybe you just allow them a couple of hours during their internship of paid time to go work of their place of choice. And then another thing that I really like is the lunch and learns, just providing a way for them to learn more about the organization that they're a part of. So if you hire an intern into in the marketing field. Maybe they're also interested in learning more about the operational side of the business, or finance, or another area, communications, things like that. So providing a lunch and learn where people just bring their lunch and listen to people talk about different areas of the business. Providing a supportive culture. So it's really important that these students will have some exposure to senior leadership at some point, whether that's at the beginning, welcoming them, in the middle, or at the end, at their presentation, or whatever it is. We talked about the mentors and buddies. I also like the new hire panels, and that can look very differently depending on what you want to offer. What I've seen that's been really effective is where you have individuals that were hired right out of college to work at your organization. You bring them together in a forum environment, informal, and the students can just ask them questions. What was it like being, this being your first job out of school? What would you have done differently? What would you have done again? What are some things that I need to know if I want to work here after I graduate? Okay, so we still have millennials cycling in, and we also have Gen Zers that will be interning with companies. And with any new generation entering the workforce, there's going to be tension. So we'll start with education. So millennials are hyper connected. They're open-minded. They want to connect digitally. And so if you think about that, what are some potential areas of conflict with that? I know, personally, I've seen situations where maybe there's a meeting at 8 a.m. and the millennial sends a text at midnight saying, I'm going to be late tomorrow, and the baby boomer doesn't get the text. They ask the millennial, well, where were you? Well, I sent you a text at midnight last night. It's like, yeah, I haven't checked my phone. That's one area that I've seen some conflict there. So just educating all of the generations what to expect, and to give some grace to each other as we work through this. The Gen Zers, they're a little bit more natural at collaboration. They do prefer more in-person communication, and they're a little bit more empathetic and accepting of different types of people and backgrounds. Successful integrations. I really like the creating opportunities for generational mentoring. So pairing up a baby boomer and a millennial and having them work on a project together. I really like that. A lot of learning can come out of that. The key with that is just making sure that the individuals selected for that have a desire to learn about the other generations, and not someone that's it's gonna create issues with. Another note here that I forgot to mention on the last slide is that a lot of millennials have a problem with picking up the phone. And so how can you coach them through communication preferences? I've had several times where, a student would come in my office and say, I'll say, have you made contact with these people? Well, yeah, I emailed them. Okay, well, did you get a response? No, they haven't responded. Okay, well, have you walked by their office? Have you picked up a phone? No, I emailed them. So there's always those coaching moments, and it works both ways. So just a word of advice is try to have a little grace and coach them through as they're learning. Another area is coaching students through how to craft an email. How informal or how formal do they need to be based on your culture? And I've seen that as an area to help the students through as well. Providing the workplace tools. How many of you have showed up to your first job or your job on the first day and you haven't had a computer or a phone? It's pretty frustrating because you really can't do much without the technology that you need. So as an organization that has a program, try to make sure that they have their tools on the first day. Okay, we're going to take another couple minutes here and see if we've got any other questions. Okay, so got a question on will we be sharing the PowerPoint slides? Yes, that's no problem. We can provide the material at a later time. Can also meet with you one-on-one if you have other questions that I'm not able to address today. Another question was, is it possible to have an effective unpaid internship? And I would say yes, absolutely. There's a lot of nonprofits out there that aren't able to pay their interns, and they create fabulous experiences based on the value that they can add to the organization. So, I've seen this in situations where an intern will step into a role and wear many different hats and get to do lots of different things. So they walk out of that internship with, a dozen new skills and a large new network of people that they're connected with. So, you can certainly choose not to pay your intern. It's not advised, but if you don't have the budget, you've got to make up for it in the experience that they have so that they're walking away with new skills and things that they can take to their next opportunity or that they can bring back to your organization at a later time. Question on how many hours do you recommend students work? I think in the summer, as close to 40 hours as possible is great, unless they're taking a lot of classes. During maybe fall and spring semester, it seems like 12 to 20 hours is kind of ideal. But again, it depends on what they're doing. Is it in a virtual capacity or are they needed on site? But hopefully that addresses your question. And then I also saw a question about compensation. And, there's internships out there that pay the bare minimum, the minimum wage. But really, most of the positions are going to pay 10, 12, all the way up to $19 an hour, depending on their background, if you're able to do that. Okay, we're going to move forward. To onboarding your intern. So onboarding really starts before student gets there. one thing that I always encourage employers to do is send them some sort of welcome care package. And it's really nice to send it during their finals week as a, hey, good luck, we're thinking about you, can't wait until you join the team. In that care package can be candy or food or snacks or even just notes from the team, a Starbucks. The first day, make sure that you're discussing expectations and when they are going to be evaluated so that they can prepare for that. Are you going to be doing a mid-internship check-in? Make sure that you are reviewing policies and procedures with them just like you would any other full-time hire so that they understand, okay, when am I getting paid? Where do I go to if I have these questions? So just making sure that those are clearly communicated on the first day, whether that's in a formal or orientation day or not. The first week, I would recommend providing a list of company acronyms because each company has their own language. And I've experienced this just meeting with companies around the state is, I don't understand what you're talking about. Can you describe that for me? Because you get so used to working in that language every day. So that can really clear up a lot of questions if you give that to them their first week. Like we said before, discuss preferred communication channels. Do you as a manager, do you want to be talked to in person, or do you prefer the phone calls? What works for you? And then make sure that you're setting them up with any necessary training that they need. We talked a little bit earlier about rolling internships, and if you can somehow overlap them so that the individual leaving is there for at least a day with the new person coming in, I think that works really nice because then they're able to share contact information with one another so that if there's questions as the project gets going again, that they can reach out to that person. Okay, during the internship. So feedback is another buzzword, right? So not only providing that feedback on a timely basis so that they have time to think about it and think about how they're going to respond to it, but also ask for feedback. What can I be doing as your manager differently? Am I checking in enough? Am I checking in too much? Is this working for you? What things are you liking about your internship? What are things that you're struggling with? And then I would also recommend a mid-session review, and not only talking about what they are doing, but how they are actually doing it, and what is their approach, and is that effective, is that working, and how can they be doing that differently. And then coaching on professional skills, and we talked about this earlier as far as how to draft an appropriate email, how to have a phone conversation, if they're in a sales capacity, making sure that you are coaching them on how to close that sale or how to communicate your product effectively. And then offboarding your intern. It's just as important as really onboarding your intern. You want to make sure that you are assessing the experience so that you can take that feedback and make changes as necessary for the next cycle of interns. I do recommend exit interviews, and I've got templates. I know that Indiana InternNet has some templates. You can either do that anonymously through a questionnaire. I don't think it is as helpful as a face-to-face conversation, but depending on resource constraints, you can also do that via SurveyMonkey if you need to. Have them do an intern presentation. We talked about that. Host a going away celebration. Make them feel like they are leaving a hole when they leave the company. And that can be a simple lunch or a pitch-in, just something to acknowledge their work and their contributions. This next one is really important because they want to know, okay, is it possible that I can work here after I graduate? What's the likelihood of that happening? So just be honest and transparent about where you're at. If you hire an average amount of 5 people out of school every year, discuss that with them. Or if you have no idea if there's any opportunity, just make sure you are including them in on that information so that as they are looking at their full-time job, they will be able to keep you on the list and at the top of the list. And then just keep in touch with your students when they go back to school. Make sure you're figuring out finding out, okay, where are they going? Where are they interning next? And, I've joked about this for a few years, but when I used to run intern programs, I always would see a few students and think, oh, they're going to be my boss one day. so, um, so it's good to keep in touch with your students. We're actually going to open up the chat line so that we can go over questions verbally if you would like to ask any. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'll give it a couple of minutes here. Okay, it should be open for any questions. Okay, I don't think we have any other outstanding questions. So with that, let me make sure I'm putting this back on. Okay, with that, I'd like to leave you with some additional resources. I mentioned Indy and InternNet. Make sure you check out the tool. They offer free postings, manager tools, and then you can learn more about the earn eligibility. NACE, again, they've got compensation data, great statistics, recruiting tips on when you attend universities, and what to look for there. And then here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me if there's something that you need one-on-one. And if I'm not the right person, I'll make sure that you get the right contact. So thank you, everyone, for making the time. I'm going to give you the gift of about 17 minutes back to your life. So hopefully you can get some other things done today. Thanks again for joining us.